What was that Thursday night football game between the Broncos and Raiders? That was probably one of the hardest games I've ever had to watch. We're going to be talking about that more, and I'm going to be debating whether or not certain teams are contenders or pretenders. So if you want to hear more about that, tune in right after the intro. Thank you for tuning in to podcast number 75 of Sports Talk with JWock. I am your host, Jonah Walkenfoos, and like you heard from the intro, what was that game last night? As I'm recording this on Friday, the Broncos played the Las Vegas Raiders, and the score ended up being 10-7 at the final score. That was a horrendous game because And we're going to be ranting about this, which, by the way, I'm not going to be giving my picks this week as far as what I'm showing on this, so we're not going to do the house call with Jonah on this episode, unfortunately, but we're going to be talking about this horrendous game because I just kind of want to get it off my chest and then move on because as a Broncos fan, that was embarrassing. I can't believe we kept it that close versus a team that looked horrible, okay? So, the Broncos going into this game with a record of 7-2, the Raiders 2-6. You would think, okay, this is a game the Broncos definitely need to just pull away from, just destroy the Raiders, and move on to the next week where we play the Chiefs, which I will mention in a little bit. The Broncos go into this game, we're all thinking, like I said earlier, this should be an easy game. That's not how it turned out. Bo Nix had a horrendous game. He threw 16 for 28 for 150 yards, one touchdown pass, and two interceptions. Now, I will say the second interception is kind of debatable as to whether or not that's his fault or not. It kind of hit right in the middle of Troy Franklin's hands, bounced up, went right into defender's hands. So you could give him the benefit of the doubt there, but I'm not going to because Bo Nix's first interception was horrendous. He rolls out, doesn't set his feet, kind of just jumps, chucks the ball downfield into double coverage where Troy Franklin didn't even have a chance to catch it, and it goes right into the hands of a Raiders defender. I mean, I don't even know what he was looking at. If you rewatch this highlight, if you guys actually watched that game, I couldn't even tell you why he even thought that was going to work. He's done that many times this year, which is an issue, and I will say, I talked highly about Bo Nix last year, especially in his rookie year. It feels like he's regressing right now. And that's a big concern for me. I do still believe that he could be a solid quarterback, but he needs some serious things cleaned up. I also think the play calling needs to be a little better, but I think it's mostly on Bo right now as to why he's not playing the greatest. He had a horrendous game. I mean, the top wide receiver for the Broncos was Pat Bryant. He had one reception for 43 yards. That was the highest amount of receiving yards for any Bronco that game. It was horrible. And then we look on the Raiders side. Geno Smith had debatably an even worse game where he threw 16 for 26 for 143 yards and one interception. No touchdowns for him, one interception. You could also debate that interception wasn't really his fault. Ashton Jeanty should have caught that football, which, by the way, Dondre Tillman, the guy who intercepted that ball, put that man at tight end or something because he's got some moves. I mean, he juked out. I don't remember who it was, but man, he got him off his feet. It was nice. Let the big man play. But no, the Raiders had a horrible game. Ashton Jeanty had 19 carries for 60 yards with a 3.2 yards per carry, and a touchdown. So he was the only offense for the Raiders. Brock Bowers had one reception for 31 yards. Basically irrelevant after the game. You do have to give credit to the Broncos defense. They looked really solid out there last night where they were continuously getting onto Geno Smith. There were some plays where I'm I don't know, there was some dirty plays. Zach Allen dove onto Geno Smith after the play and kind of took out the ankle when he already knew it was hurt. So I don't know, as a Broncos fan, I do think that's a little sketchy, but overall, the Broncos looked solid defensively and horrible offensively, and it was just a horrible game, and I just want to say I apologize to anyone who had to watch that game. It was an embarrassment, and what worries me is the Broncos, yes, they are at home next week, but they're going against the Kansas City Chiefs, who have looked solid these last couple of weeks. They're going to be healthy. They're coming off a bye week. I'm nervous about this game. But let me know what you guys think down below. Maybe the Broncos can pull off a win, but yeah, let me know down below. And let's get into the next topic, and we're going to be debating whether or not teams are contenders or pretenders. Okay, so before we go into the contenders versus pretenders, I have to ask you guys a question. Have you guys liked and subscribed the video? If not, feel free to do so. It's completely free, and you could always unsubscribe after whenever you'd like. Also, hit the bell icon so then you could be notified whenever I have new episodes or whatnot. Follow me on all social media platforms so you could get news updates, my weekly NFL picks. You can hear all of that on Instagram, social media. I'm trying to get more involved in X. It's still kind of difficult. I'm kind of trending more towards my main account being my X account. If you want to follow me on that, it's just JWock. That's all you have to search up. But anyways, let's get into as to whether or not teams are contenders or pretenders. The teams I decided to talk about for this topic is the teams that are leading their current division. I know there are teams that are below that are probably better, but I'm just going to be talking about the teams as of Friday, November 7th, the teams that are leading their division right now. And I'm going to be debating as to whether or not they can contend for a Super Bowl or not. So let's start with the AFC, where we're going to start with the AFC East, where it's being led by the New England Patriots. A lot of people did not expect this, including myself. I thought the Buffalo Bills would be the team that would be ahead right now. But let's talk about the Patriots, since I think they deserve some flowers right now. They're currently sitting at a record of 7-2, and the teams they've beaten this year are the Dolphins, Panthers, Bills, Saints, Titans, Browns, and Falcons. Let's be real, I think the only games that are somewhat decent, the Bills is a good win, but then it's the Panthers and Falcons are okay, and then the rest is they're okay. And then they lost to this year the Raiders and the Steelers. So losing to the Raiders is definitely not a great look, but losing to the Steelers, I can see that. The Steelers are looking decent, and we'll actually mention them soon. I think this Patriots team is not a contender. I think they're more of a pretender as of now. I think Drake May is making great progress. He's looking like a star in the making. He's already a star, let's be completely honest with you. The Patriots finally gave him some weapons, and he's really executing well. He's playing well. He's leading this team to win. This team to wins. The only thing that makes me a little concerned is their overall schedule is not very difficult. And that's what kind of worries me. It's Drake May, yeah, he's balling out, but is that really going to contribute to when he goes to the playoffs where he's going against much better teams, and can their run game really play well? Because in the playoffs, you have to have a good run game. Otherwise, it really doesn't work out too well. So I'm going to say the Patriots are pretenders as of now. Next up, we're going to go to the AFC North, where we're going to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they are sitting at a record of 5-3. The teams they've beaten are the Jets, the Patriots, the Vikings, the Browns, and the Colts. Yeah, when I'm looking at this, they really haven't beaten the greatest teams. They beat the Colts, which the Colts are a very good team, and they actually put the work on the Colts. They really made Daniel Jones uncomfortable, forced multiple turnovers from him. The Patriots is also a solid win. The Vikings, I believe they beat them when McCarthy was not the quarterback. I think it was still Carson Wentz at that time. So it's kind of debatable on that one. And then the teams they lost to are the Seahawks, the Bengals, and the Packers. So they've lost to some good teams. I'm going to say the Steelers are also pretenders. It just doesn't feel like they've really beaten the craziest teams other than the Colts and the Patriots. But they've lost to some good teams. I just don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to get it done with this squad. We also saw the Steelers were kind of trying to look for some wide receiver help. It's kind of funny when they just traded George Pickens this offseason and traded for DK Metcalf, but we'll just have to see how the Steelers team pans out. I honestly don't think they're going to end up being the top team in the AFC North by the end of the year. I think the Baltimore Ravens, since they're coming back to health, are really going to get on a win streak, and they're going to be able to get back up top. So I think the Steelers are pretenders. Next up, we have the AFC South, where we have the Indianapolis Colts, a big surprise for the year. They're sitting at a record of 7-2. They've beaten the Dolphins, the Broncos, the Titans, the Raiders, the Cardinals, and the Chargers, along with, if I'm not mistaken, the Titans again. And then they lost to the Rams and the Steelers. They've lost to some good teams. they've beaten some decent teams. They beat the Broncos, they beat the Chargers. The Cardinals are okay. Other than that, it's not great. And then they lost to the Rams and the Steelers. So it's very questionable. They did make a big move for trading for Sauce Gardner. If you guys didn't know, the Colts traded for Sauce Gardner, where they basically got rid of 2 first-round picks and A.D. Mitchell, which is a hefty load for Sauce Gardner, especially with how he's been playing this year. But I think that's a great addition for the Colts, and I think that's going to make them better. I do think they are contenders as long as Daniel Jones does not turn the ball over 3 to 4 times a game. He shouldn't be turning the ball over even twice a game or even once, but he needs to be playing better, and hopefully he can bounce back in this upcoming week. And then the final team is in the AFC West, and that is the Denver Broncos, my favorite team. They are currently sitting at the best record in the NFL at 8-2. That's obviously probably going to change once Sunday comes because, they do have a game ahead of everyone. They beat the Titans, the Bengals, the Eagles, the Jets, the Giants, the Cowboys, the Texans, and the Raiders, and they lost to the Colts and the Chargers. If you look at their 2 losses, that's a little concerning. They lost by only a field goal to both of those teams. They hung in there, but it's just still a little concerning. They have beaten the Eagles. I also think, the Giants had a lot of motivation that game. They still came back from that game. The Cowboys had the number 1 offense. They shut that down. The Texans had a great defense. They still ended up pulling out a win. C.J. Stroud, unfortunately, got hurt with a concussion. This Broncos team, how do I explain this? See, I'm going to put them also in the pretenders right now because here's my reasoning. The offense is not good enough right now. It is not good enough, and they're not getting the job done. If I would say the offense is pretenders, the defense is by far contenders. But if you mix the two, I still think it's pretenders because I really do think the offense is weighing this team down, and it's so unfortunate. I hope Bo Nix and Sean Payton could get this figured out, and they got to get it figured out quick because they have still 7 more games to play. 8 wins, is not going to get the job done. That's not going to get them to the playoffs. So let's see what they can do to finish this season off. But that's going to be my AFC Contenders or Pretenders. Let's go on to the NFC right after this. Okay, so now let's move to the NFC, where we're going to be talking about more Contenders or Pretenders. And I think the NFC is pretty strong this year. So let's start off with the NFC East, where we have the Philadelphia Eagles sitting at a record of 6-2. They've beaten the Cowboys, Chiefs, Rams, Buccaneers, Vikings, and Giants, and then they lost to the Broncos and the Giants. This Eagles team looks solid. I mean, you look at their wins, and that's like all solid wins. They've lost pretty bad to the Giants, and then they blew a lead against the Broncos in the 4th quarter. But this Eagles team, they have to be contenders. They're the reigning Super Bowl champs. They still look very solid. A lot of people say Jalen Hurts isn't that great of a quarterback. I highly disagree. I think Jalen Hurts is a top 10 quarterback by far. And he's got a great offense. They've got a very solid defense. I believe they just traded for Jair Alexander. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong team, but I think they just traded for him along with having Quinyon Mitchell already. I really like this Eagles team, and I think they are for sure contenders. Next up, we have the NFC North, where we have the Green Bay Packers sitting at a record of 5 wins, 2 losses, and 1 tie, which is very rare in the NFL to get a tie. They beat the Lions, Commanders, Bengals, Cardinals, and Steelers. They tied to the Cowboys, and then they lost to the Browns and the Panthers. Some ugly losses. The Panthers are not a terrible team, but it's definitely a game that I think the Packers should have won. Jordan Love had a horrible performance, had some of the worst throws I've ever seen. I mean, I've seen it before because I watch Bo Nix sometimes. But yeah, that was not great. And then losing to the Browns is definitely not a game that you can be very happy about. You can't really be happy about any loss, but especially to the Browns, that's definitely an ugly one. But they have beaten some impressive teams like the Lions, Commanders, Cardinals, and Steelers. So I think they're contenders right now. I think if Jordan Love can really get it going, I think this team could genuinely be contenders. Micah Parsons, adding him to the defense was definitely a great addition. I just think this Packers team has a lot of potential. You know what? No, I'm going to move them down to pretenders as of now because I do think there's too many question marks with this Packers team. I do think if they get it together, they can be contenders, but right now I am going to switch to pretenders for the Packers. Next up, we have the NFC South, where we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers sitting at a record of 6-2. They've beaten the Falcons, Texans, Jets, Seahawks, 49ers, and Saints, and then they lost to the Eagles and Lions. This Buccaneers team has been banged up all year long. They've had many injuries that have been very crucial, especially on the offensive end, missing Mike Evans for most of the year so far. Chris Godwin has been out for most of the year. Emeka Ibuka, I feel like I say that name wrong every single time, but their rookie wide receiver, he's been hurt a couple weeks. Bucky Irvin's been out for a couple weeks, and this team is still sitting at 6-2. If this team could be healthy, they genuinely will be such an amazing offense. Tez Johnson has also stepped up for them at the wide receiver position. I'm going to say this Buccaneers a contending team. The fact that they're 6-2, beating some very impressive teams while still being extremely injured is very impressive to say the least, and I think this Buccaneers team could be one of the favorites to come out of the NFC. Let me know what you guys think down below. But let's move on to the final team in the NFC West, where the Seattle Seahawks are leading with a record of 6-2. They're actually tied with the Los Angeles Rams, but I think they have like some tiebreaker as of now. They haven't matched up against them, so that should be interesting. But I'm going to talk about the Seahawks in this episode, where they've beaten the Steelers, the Saints, the Cardinals, the Jaguars, the Texans, and the Commanders, and then they lost to the 49ers and Buccaneers. The Seahawks team, in my opinion, is a contending team. They just made a bold trade to trade for Rashid Shaheed from the Saints to add to that wide receiver room. You know, Jackson Smith-Njigba has been unreal at wide receiver. He is looking like a superstar, along with Cooper Kupp and now Rashid Shaheed. That's going to be a huge addition for the Seahawks team. Sam Darnold's playing well. Hopefully he can start continuing to play consistently going into playoff play, because I think this team for sure is going to make the playoffs. I do think this team's a contender, like I mentioned. But I think the big thing that's going to make this Seahawks team either like Super Bowl favorites or not is whether or not Sam Darnold can perform in the playoffs. We saw this with the Vikings. He played excellent in the regular season, and then towards the end of the regular season and the playoffs, he really started to fall off. So hopefully he doesn't do that for the Seahawks, but we'll just have to wait and see. But anyways, that's going to be the end of episode number 75 of Sports Talk with JWock. I can't believe we're already 75 episodes into this podcast, especially on YouTube. But I just want to thank you guys so much for coming along with me in this journey. I'm going to keep this podcast going no matter how many subscribers or views I get. I'm having fun doing it. I hope I can eventually get more subscribers and views, but at the same time, I'm just doing this for fun right now. If I get a little more serious, I'll be, hopefully getting more people to join the JWock fam, I guess. I don't know. That was kind of weird. But anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in to Sports Talk with JWock, podcast number 75. If you want to hit the like and subscribe button, I would greatly appreciate that. But anyways, I hope you all have an amazing week. God bless.